episode of the four Muhammads of Ahlulbayt. We began by speaking about Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam, and then we discussed the life of Al-Imam Muhammad al-Baqir, and then Al-Imam Muhammad al-Jawad. And today, inshaAllah, we will continue discussing the life of the last of Muhammads of Ahlul Bayt, and that is Al-Imam al-Mahdi ajjalallahu farajahu al-Sharif. Now, his first name is Muhammad, but this is a very sensitive issue within the traditions of Ahlul Bayt, and there's a whole debate between scholars on this point. Can we even mention the name Muhammad in reference to the 12th Imam or not? I'll get to this in a couple of minutes. Al-Imam al-Mahdi ajjalallahu farajahu al-Sharif is the 12th Imam of Ahlul Bayt and the final Imam of Ahlul Bayt. Al-Imam al-Mahdi was born in the city of Samarra in the year 255 after Hijrah in mid-Sha'ban. The mother of Al-Imam al-Mahdi was a very noble woman, a woman by the name of Narjis. She has different names in different hadiths. In some hadiths she's called Malika, in others she's called Sawsan, Saqil, or Sayqal. It all refers to the mother of Al-Imam al-Mahdi and the wife of Al-Imam al-Askari alayhi salam. Now, who is this woman, Narjis? We have two narratives about the mother of Imam Mahdi. Some ulama believe in the first, others believe in the second. The first narrative states that Al-Imam al-Mahdi, and you can find this in traditions that a Shaykh al-Saduq narrates and a Shaykh al-Tusi. They both narrate this, that the mother of Al-Imam al-Mahdi used to be a Christian Roman princess who lived in the Byzantine Empire. Her grandfather was the emperor. And she was the granddaughter of the emperor, and on her mother's side, her lineage went back to one of the disciples of Isa, Jesus, and that is Simon Peter. So noble lineage. She was living in the kingdom of her grandfather, but she was destined to marry Al-Imam al-Askari alayhi salam and be the mother of Al-Imam al-Mahdi. The hadith mentions that she saw in her dream one day, while she's still a Christian, she's still within the empire of her grandfather, she sees a dream where Maryam alayhi salam comes with Fatima al-Zahra, and she doesn't know who Fatima al-Zahra is. They come in a dream and they ask her to embrace Islam. They tell her, you have to accept the religion of Islam, the final prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they tell her that after you do this, you will be ready to marry a very noble man. She says then she sees another dream. She sees Prophet Isa standing next to his disciple, Simon Peter. And then she sees Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. He comes in her dream and he proposes to her. He asks for her hand for his grandson Al-Imam al-Askari. And she doesn't know what's going on. She has no idea who Al-Imam al-Askari is. And both Isa and Simon Peter, they accept in her dream. She wakes up. She's very disturbed. She doesn't know what's going on. But she starts seeing more and more signs that she is destined to marry the grandson, one of the grandchildren of the final prophet of Islam. So she does embrace Islam. She becomes a Muslim. But how is she going to get to Imam al-Askari when she's in the Roman Byzantine Empire and he's in Samarra? How is this going to happen? So the hadith says that there was a battle between the Muslims and the Muslim Empire and the Byzantine Empire. And she somehow ended up being a prisoner of war. She got captured and she was brought to Baghdad, the capital of the Abbasids. Al-Imam al-Hadi alayhi salam, he sends one of his servants to Baghdad and he asks him to search for this specific prisoner of war who was being sold as a slave. He tells him, when you find her, you pay this much, you buy her and you bring her. And this is exactly what happens. The man goes, he finds her, he tells her that my master Imam al-Hadi has ordered me to buy you, and he takes her to Samarra. Once she arrives to Samarra, Imam al-Hadi alayhi salam asks her to marry his son Imam al-Askari. This is how she becomes the wife of Imam al-Askari, and then she delivers Imam al-Mahdi. So based on this narrative, Imam al-Mahdi's lineage goes back to Rasulullah from his father, but through his mother Narjis or Malika, it goes back to one of the disciples of Jesus, and that is Simon Peter. Now this is one hadith that is narrated by both Shaykh al-Saduq and al-Tusi. There's another hadith that they narrate from a man by the name of Muhammad ibn Abd al-Jabbar. He was a companion of Imam al-Askari. He went to see the Imam one day and he asked him a question. He tells him, Yabna Rasulullah, who is the Imam after you? Who's the Khalifa after you? The Imam tells him, the Khalifa after me, the Imam and the Hujjah of Allah after me is my son. And he tells him this, that his name is the same as the name of Rasulullah. And his kunya title is the same kunya of Rasulullah, Muhammad al-Mahdi. And the kunya of Rasulullah is Abu al-Qasim. Thus, the kunya of the 12th Imam, the title of the 12th Imam is also Abu al-Qasim. Some people, they call him by Abu Salih, but the correct kunya is Abu Qasim. As many hadiths mention, it's the same as Rasulullah. So he tells him this. Once he tells him this narrator, Muhammad ibn Abd al-Jabbar, he asks him, Yabna Rasulullah, mimman huwa? Who's his mother? He's asking Imam al-Askari. And the Imam tells him, Min ibnat Ibn Qaysar, Malik al-Rum. He tells him she will be a woman that is the granddaughter of the emperor of the Roman Empire, which is the Byzantine Empire back then. And then he says, إِنَّهُ سَيُولَدْ وَيَغِيبْ عَنِ النَّاسِ غَيْبَ طَوِيلَ ثُمَّ يَظْهَرُ. He tells him that he will go in a ghaiba, occultation, and after a long time he will reappear. So these are two hadiths that speak about this narrative of the mother of Imam al-Mahdi, Sayyida Narjis, being from a line of royalty, the granddaughter of the emperor of that time. And the second hadith, you can find it in a book called Ithbatul Raj'a by Al-Fadl ibn Shadhan, who was one of the companions of Imam al-Jawad, al-Hadi and al-Askari. This is one narrative that we can find in the hadith. There are some scholars that have argued against this, that have not accepted this narrative for certain reasons. I myself have a discussion on this. You can find it on YouTube. I mention their objections and I refute every single one of them in a lecture titled The Birth of Imam Mahdi. And I talk about this hadith and then I mention their objections and I mention a reply to their objections. So I don't believe that there's anything wrong with this narrative. But because it's a long discussion, I'm not going to get into it. The point is, this is one opinion. And there are hadiths to prove and back this, that she was a Roman princess. And then there's a second opinion. The second opinion says that no, she was just a normal slave, that a Sayyida Hakima. Sayyida Hakima was the daughter of Imam al-Jawad and the uncle of Imam al-Askari. She owned her and then she was freed and Imam al-Askari married her and he had her. And you can find also a Shaykh al-Saduq and An-Nu'mani, also one of the early scholars who has written a book about Imam Mahdi. They narrate this. They say that she was a Sayyida Narjis, was a slave that was owned by a Sayyida Hakima, daughter of Imam Jawad. She was born a Muslim and she ended up marrying Imam al-Askari. So there's no such thing as her being a Christian who converted and she was a princess that was captured in war and brought. So whatever the case is, there's two opinions on this. As-Sayyida Narjis alayha salam was a noble woman who gave birth to Imam al-Mahdi. Now, the rulers of the time, Bani al-Abbas, they knew, they had heard over and over again from the earlier Imams, from the Shia, that these Shia believe that Al-Askari will have a child, and this child is destined to be the Mahdi, the awaited Savior, and he will end all tyranny. He will end the regimes of all the tyrants, of all of the oppressors. And because of this, they were very alarmed. They began to spy very, very intense scrutiny and monitoring Al-Imam Al-Askari alayhi salam. And they had intended that whenever Al-Imam Al-Askari has a child, let's kill him. Even though they didn't believe that he's going to be the Mahdi. But you never know. If there's a 1 out of a million chance, whenever that child is born, kill him. Just like Fir'aun, when he wanted to kill Musa, thus he killed so many thousands of babies, because he was informed that your kingdom will end at the hands of Musa. So this is what they did. They tried to look for the son of Al-Askari. When is he going to have a son? Soon as he has a son, kill him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here, He performed a miracle. When the mother of Al-Imam al-Mahdi was pregnant, there were no signs of pregnancy. And Al-Imam al-Sadiq mentions in one hadith that this is exactly what happened to the mother of Prophet Musa. Because Fir'aun, he was sending troops, women to everyone's house from Bani Israel. And if they see a pregnant lady, kill the child. So Allah hid the signs of pregnancy. And the same thing happened with the mother of Imam Mahdi. No one knew that she was pregnant. Even the people that lived with her in the house. Only Al-Imam al-Askari knew that she was pregnant until the minute that she gave birth. So his birth was concealed to protect him from Bani al-Abbas, from the government. Number two, a second thing that Al-Imam al-Askari did was that when Al-Imam al-Mahdi was born, he did not show him to anyone. He hid him. And he would not be shown and revealed only to the closest of his Shia, the ones that he could fully trust. And there were only few times, rare occasions, that they were allowed to see Imam al-Mahdi as a child. Why? Because it wasn't reported to the government that there's a child. This child was born in secrecy. He was to be hidden, or else they would come after him and kill him. So he would not show him unless it was one of the closest of his companions. A third thing that the Imam said and did was that he did inform his Shia that the Mahdi is born, so that they know the next Imam is born. But he gave them a very clear instruction that he will be kept hidden and his name is to never be mentioned. It is haram for you to mention his name. Mahdi is not his name. This is his title. He's the one that is guided. His name is Muhammad. So he made this instruction clear that never mention his name. And I was able to find at least 10 hadiths from the Imams, not just Imam al-Askari, even the Imams before Imam al-Askari, when they would speak about the Mahdi, they would say he is the one who people will be forbidden from mentioning his name. Now, scholars, when they look at these hadiths, there's a discussion between scholars ever since the small ghaibah. That is it haram to mention the name of Imam Mahdi? 10 hadiths all say that he's the one that we should not mention his name. It is forbidden to mention his name. Our contemporary scholars, they say, that once we analyze these hadiths, we understand that those traditions are contextual, meaning it was haram and impermissible for the Shia to mention the name of Imam Mahdi, but only during the small ghaibah, the first years of Imam Mahdi's life. Why? Because Bani al-Abbas, they're waiting for this child to be born. They want to kill him. So for the purposes of taqiyya and to hide the fact that he is born, the Shia were instructed to not mention his name so that the authorities don't know he even exists. And this is mentioned clearly in 2 hadiths in Al-Kafi. In one hadith, a man by the name of Ali ibn Muhammad al-Salihi, He says, someone after Imam al-Askari died, someone asked me, what's the name of his son that he left? And where is he? He says, a letter was sent to Imam al-Mahdi. He's in the Ghaiba. And the Imam himself replied in that letter. I'll get to this in a couple of minutes, how Imam al-Mahdi would issue letters during his small Ghaiba. So he says an answer came from the Imam saying, إن دللتم على الاسم أذاعوه وإن عرفوا المكان دلوا عليه. That if you mention the name and this becomes public, they will know that he has a child, Al-Askari has a child, and they will go after him. So to preserve his life and to keep the authorities away from him, Al-Imam Al-Mahdi is telling them, do not mention my name. There's another hadith where Abdullah ibn Ja'far al-Himyari, also one of the companions of Al-Imam al-Askari, of Al-Imam al-Mahdi, meaning during the small ghaiba, he says, I went to one of the ambassadors of Al-Imam al-Mahdi, and I asked him, have you ever seen Al-Imam al-Mahdi? He said, Wallahi, I have seen him, yes. And then he said, what's his name? He asked the ambassador. The ambassador replies, he says, Muharramun alaykum an tas'alu an dhalik. It is haram for you to ask and to mention his name. And then he said, this is not my words. This is what the Mahdi, Al-Imam al-Mahdi himself told me, that it is haram. Tell my Shia to not mention my name. And then he mentions why, the ambassador. He says, فَإِنَّ الْأَمْرَ عِنْدَ السُّلْطَانِ أَنَّ أَبَا مُحَمَّدْ مَاتَ وَلَمْ يُخَلِّفْ وَلَدًا. He says that the authorities believe, this is what they think, that Al-Imam al-Askari died and he left no sons. This is what they believe. وَإِذَا وَقَعَ الْإِسْمُ وَقَعَ الطَّلَبُ. But if they see the Shia mentioning Muhammad, son of Al-Hasan, then they will realize that no, Al-Askari did have a son, he was kept hidden, and then they will go after him. فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَأَمْسِكُوا عَنْ ذَلِكَ. So fear Allah and do not put Al-Imam al-Mahdi in danger. So don't mention his name. So based on these hadith, scholars say that this ban was contextual. It was during the small ghaiba when the Bani al-Abbas were searching for Imam al-Mahdi. Today, it is no longer haram to mention his name because no one is searching for the Imam. No one even really believes the Imam is there. And even if we mention his name, no one is going to say, okay, then there must be this Mahdi and let's go after him. Because now he's over 1,000 years old and nobody really, besides the Shia, they don't believe that there's such a person. But when he was a child and he was a normal age, a normal human being age, the authorities, they believed that Al-Askari had a son, if they would hear the Shia. It was something that they would believe. So the first 30, 40, 50, 60 years of Imam al-Mahdi's life, it was banned. And then the ban no longer applied because there was no fear for Imam al-Mahdi after that. Now, his mother, Sayyida Narjis, it's reported that after she gave birth, there were some rumors that the authorities heard that she gave birth. So they came to her and they imprisoned her so that they could get her to confess. She wouldn't confess. She denied it. They thought maybe she's pregnant, so they just monitored her. For 3 years, the mother of Imam Mahdi was placed in prison. After 3 years, she's able to break free. There's some unrest in the government. She's able to escape the prison. And she hides in the houses of the Shia in Samarra. From one house to another house. She's like a fugitive. Simply because they suspect her of being the mother of that child, Al-Mahdi. Anyway, once again, she evades them for a while. Once again, she is imprisoned. And she is placed in prison for 7 years. 7 more years. First 3 years. And now a second 7 years. And then she ends up dying in prison. This is the mother of Imam al-Mahdi. As for his father, Imam al-Hasan al-Askari, Imam al-Mahdi lives for 5 years with his father. As we said, in those 5 years, he would not be seen by anyone. So if you would go to the house of Imam al-Askari, there were no signs that he had a child. You could not find the Mahdi anywhere. He was always kept in hiding. He was kept as a secret child so the authorities would not know. And only in very rare cases, some of the closest Shia, as we said, they received the honor of seeing Imam al-Mahdi. For example, Shaykh al-Saduq narrates from Abu Ghanim. Abu Ghanim was a man that worked in the house of Imam al-Askari. He used to serve. He says that on the third day after he was born, after Imam al-Mahdi was born, 3 days after, Al-Imam al-Askari alayhi salam, he brought some of his Shia to his house and he showed them a little child, a 3-year-old child. He told them, this is my son, the Mahdi. He will be the Imam after me. So some of the Shia, they learned, and he told them to keep this private and to keep this as a secret. Shaykh al-Saduq narrates another story from a man by the name of Ahmed ibn Ishaq al-Qummi. Ahmed ibn Ishaq was one of the greatest companions of Imam al-Askari. And he lived in the city of Qum. And he was the representative of Imam al-Askari in Qum. He comes to Samarra one year. And Ahmed ibn Ishaq says, I went in the house of Imam al-Askari. I have heard the Imam sent me a letter that I had a child. But I never saw the child. So he says, I went, hopefully I could get a glance at the son of Imam al-Askari, the Mahdi. He says, I went to his house and I asked him about the Khalifa, about his son. He says, the Imam, he started to tell me about the position of Imamah and how there always has to be an Imam. This life, this world cannot continue if there is no Imam living. And then he says, I asked him, Ya ibn Rasulullah, who is the Khalifa after you? He says, the Imam replied to me. He says, hold on 1 minute. Khalifa will know exactly what's inside the belt without even checking. So these are 3 signs. Through these 3 signs, you will know that this is the Mahdi. Abu al-Adyan says, I left, I came back after 15 days. Subhanallah. He says, I arrived Samarra, close to the house of the Imam. I can hear the woman crying. Imam al-Askari has died. He was poisoned and killed. So he says, I entered the house of the Imam. Who do I find is standing as the main person who is receiving condolences? I see Imam al-Askari's brother, Ja'far. He had a brother by the name of